build mastery over a specific target and become familiar with an application I almost just said it at an intimate level, like me and this application are like getting down and dirty.
It's
you know
9
what
p.m.
All right, dude, we got some news today, huh?
Yeah, man. There was a lot that went on this week. Must be just beginning of the month, you know.
Yeah, you want to take one or should I?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll take the first big thing, which is that unfortunately, PortSwigger, creators of Burp Suite, they have decided that they are going to be ending their I think it was the weekly newsletter, the Daily Swig. Maybe it was daily. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was called the Daily Swig,
daily.
but
yeah. No, it's sad to see that, man. You love to see quality content being put out and aggregated in the bug bounty space and the cybersecurity space. So sad to see them go, but yeah, I definitely understand. It is hard to keep up with the pace of the industry for sure.
100%. I mean, I think if anything, we've learned that this is definitely a full-time job at times. So.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
it definitely takes. I mean, even just the aggregation of stuff like that. I feel like every time I'm looking through Twitter, I'm on the clock trying to aggregate some cool stuff. And luckily, we had a nice little planning session last week, and we've got some content planned out a little bit. So
we were very organized recently. So.
Yeah.
Hopefully things are a little bit
structured.
easier. But I could definitely see how trying to do this every day would definitely wear you down a little bit.
That was definitely a grind. Sad to see it go, but on other news, they have been killing it. PortSwigger has in the research area. Do you see these 3 links that I put in there about the new XSS vectors that they're coming out with?
I did. These are really, really awesome. And I'm just thinking about a couple different scenarios, like literally in the last week or two. That XSSs that were like really, really hard to exploit that would have probably been a lot easier to exploit with these tips.
Yeah, for sure, man. I hadn't seen any of this before, and the one that kind of blows my mind, we'll link them down for you guys in the description, but I'm specifically talking about the one February 27th where he has an A tag with an href. The href contains %0a and then your JavaScript payload alert 1.
Yeah.
And then when you click it, it has an on-click as well and sets the protocol to JavaScript. So then I guess what happens here, the order is the on-click triggers, sets the protocol of the href to JavaScript. And then when the href gets triggered after the on-click finishes, then the protocol has already been updated to JavaScript, and then the actual executed href is JavaScript %OA alert 1. Yeah?
Yeah. It's super, super cool. It's a super cool attack vector because I think all the time you see like an A link that you have more access to than you do like an arbitrary element. And this is just a really great attack vector because it sort of puts another spin on ways to sort of pop that XSS that are outside of the standard vectors.
I think this one would probably be most helpful if you've got like one of those WAFs that's kind of annoying because obviously he's inside the unclick handler. There's a protocol piece being used. So you're assigning variable already inside of onClick. So you've already got JavaScript execution. But the scenario where this would be most helpful, I think, is payload obfuscation to get past a WAF and kind of do it a little bit more sneakily in that way.
Yeah, for sure. I know that like a lot of WAFs are going to block onClick, maybe just by default. But if you have access to onClick and it's like a very sensitive WAF, like you mentioned, that's probably a great attack vector where you basically set this protocol to JavaScript, and then HTTP links from that page are executed like JavaScript, basically. Yeah.
The one that just blows my mind is I don't know how to tell you which one it is. I guess it's the one that ends in 70688. Joel, in the doc.
Yep.
It's the one that has a script tag, and then location.protocol equals JavaScript. And then like inside the script tag, there's like a comment that has, oh, no.
Yeah, no, that's just the example URL.
Oh, dude, no way. Yeah. That's the example URL?
Yeah, and so somebody actually on the earlier tweet that we were just talking about, somebody replied and mentioned that oftentimes they see that there'll be a check that the href location has to have either an HTTP or an HTTPS on it. But on Chrome, if you put 2 slashes at the end, it works fine.
Yeah. No way.
So I think that's why in that payload that you see, you can see it's like https://example.com. Then you have your JavaScript payload, and then you end in 2 slashes.
Yeah. Yeah, so then it updates the protocol, right? And that's why the %OA is necessary there. It updates the protocol. Wow, okay, this is sick. Guys, you definitely got to go open up this payload. I thought it was cool before I understood it, and now I understand it. This is nuts.
So cool.
Definitely check out this tweet ending in 70688 in the description from PortSwigger Research, because essentially what's happening here is it's reassigning the protocol, and then if I'm getting it correct, Joel, it's commenting out from example all the way to the new line, and then it's executing after that, because that new line bumps it down to the next line inside the JavaScript, and then it executes alert 1 and comments out the rest of it.
Yes,
that's sick.
So I'm not sure like whether or not like the comment has to be within that script tag. You know what I mean? I think that they're saying like if you go to that URL.
No, it's not that. It's not that.
Just
that URL there. But you know, when it updates the JavaScript protocol there, and it becomes JavaScript : // right? And then // is a comment in JavaScript. So then it's commenting out all the way into the %OA, and then it's bumping down a new line, and then executing alert. I think is what's happening.
Super interesting. They actually, it's funny. People mentioned that they have a typo in their payload here. They did %0A, and they tied it in with alert, but it needs to be %0A alert instead of %0 alert.
Yeah, so it's gonna execute a function called alert.
Yeah.
Alert 1.
Alert 1.
You got like a hick hacker there. Alert 1, and then I fired the alert 1.
Firing the alert 1.
And then the last one. It's all right, because I'm from Virginia and I say y'all, so I'm just making fun of my own culture here. So the last one was this research that they did, navigation.navigate, and apparently navigation is sort of a experimental object within Chrome. So that's another method to get an XSS to pop if you have access to it.
Yep. And again, somebody in the comments on the replies on this mentioned it's a little bit of an odd attack scenario because you're basically executing JavaScript from JavaScript. But PortSwigger Research replied, and they mentioned that it's basically just like another sync,
another sync.
Right? It's like your target, depending on what you're dealing with, depending on the page. There's a lot of different scenarios that you're going to be exploiting. Some of them might end up hitting navigate.navigate, and if you have a string that can lead into that, then you can pop an XSS in another different way, which is just great knowledge to keep in the back of your brain. Put it in your notepad, put it in your sticky notes.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate PortSwigger Research's thoroughness here because, you know, whenever we're writing a tool or something like that, their cheat sheet that they have is a really good resource for knowing where all of the sources and syncs are. So yeah, definitely shout out to them for that.
Yeah, super dope. Gareth Hayes, who wrote Hackverter, great Burp Suite plugin. If you're not familiar with it, Hackverter is like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like the decoder tool that's built into Burp Suite, but on steroids. So you can put in little tags that basically automatically encode and decode different types of text.
So helpful.
It's super great for your research and your payload testing. You don't have to encode something, send it, change it, encode it, send it. You just type it in plain text and put it in little tags that'll encode it the right way, and you're good to go.
One of the things that I've noticed sort of about this, and this is just sort of a general hacking principle, is like if you're trying to write an exploit for something and you are just trying to get the proof of concept, you know, in place to prove to yourself that there's a valid vuln, you got to make that what is it, like iteration cycle, the time it takes for you to try one attempt, you got to minimize that as much as you possibly can, because that just is as much friction as you can remove from that as possible. Your brain is spending less time thinking about, okay, now I got to encode this and I got to encode that and blah, blah, blah. And it's focusing more on, okay, this is the big picture of the exploitation that's happening. And I think that's absolutely pivotal. So Hackverter really does that well and allows you to kind of, without having to put too much thought into it, make sure that your payload's getting encoded properly.
Yeah.
Clutch. Yeah,
this is it's taking me back to our conversation about automation and sort of where you draw that line in terms of this is something I should automate versus this is something I should just test manually and find the bug and submit it. Yeah,
absolutely, man. Since we're on the topic of Gareth Hayes, I figured I'd give a shout out here to his JavaScript for Hackers ebook. The guy just puts out constantly amazing JavaScript payloads and discoveries and research. And I've only read like the first chapter of the book, but in the first chapter, you can just tell how much he loves JavaScript. He's like, man, I just, it's not about the hacking for me. It's just about knowing everything about JavaScript. I just slapped my mic. Hopefully that didn't make too terrible sound. But he just, he's so enthusiastic of it. He's like, I just want to know every single thing about JavaScript. And that's the kind of guy you want writing a book called JavaScript for Hackers, for sure.
100%.
So definitely worth every penny of $20 that the book costs. And yeah, I mean, the other thing is that, and this is sort of a rant that I won't go too far down, but it's such a good and such an important practice to invest in yourself as a professional in any industry, and even more so in the cybersecurity industry. So getting educational materials like this book, getting certs that are going to add value like the OSCP and offensive security products, that is absolutely worth every penny you put into it. So definitely go ahead and pick up this book by Gareth Hayes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those sort of, you might read like the whole book and only pull like a couple like key really useful things, but those key useful things are going to be really, really useful, and they're going to be super useful down the line. You're going to like pull on that knowledge constantly. And it might not even be immediately apparent as you're reading it, like, oh, this is something that's super useful, but I'm almost certain that as you're hacking, you're going to pick up on some things and you're going to be like, oh, I read it.
It's almost like the butterfly effect, inside of hacking, inside of knowledge, is just kind of getting that knowledge, knowing how all these various pieces work together. You start to be able to craft a better picture of how the JavaScript engine's working and how all the different pieces fit together. And so definitely has a lot of value.
Yeah. He also mentions in the description that he covers this thing called JS fuck, which is something that I have messed around with quite a bit. But essentially, it's building JavaScript payloads using only plus, open and close square bracket, open and close parentheses, and the exclamation symbol. So just that set of 2, 4, 6 characters.
It's nuts, dude.
It's super, super cool. If you want to dig into it to see how it actually works, you definitely can. But I totally recommend buy this book.
Have you? Like, I still have no idea how that works. Do you have any remotest idea how that works, or have you just kind of played with it?
Yeah, so it's essentially if you think about like how JavaScript implicitly converts things. If you have like two parentheses, like that's like calling something, that will evaluate to a string called function.
Yeah.
Okay. And from there you have indexes. So if you do like a string function index 0, that's the letter F.
Kidding me.
And so you can build out an entire alphabet that is based on that, or you can do offsets from care codes, and it's absolutely
Do you have
crazy.
to get to an eval statement or something, or
no, because you can run it as a function. So it's at a certain point you could just return stuff essentially.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I definitely want to go in after this and kind of suss out exactly how it kind of works out all the different pieces, because that's crazy. I have used it before, though, actually, in like an actual exploitation context. There was just a really tight WAF, and I knew I was in the JavaScript context, so I was just like, boom, I'm just gonna encode it with this, and there you go.
Yeah, all about WAF bypasses today.
Yeah, man, I don't know. To be honest, I haven't really come up against a WAF in a while. Most of the XSSs that I've kind of been popping lately most are on the main application, and you're not really sticking a WAF in front of the main application a lot of times. So
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I have seen a couple recently, and usually it's not like a homegrown WAF.
Yeah.
But there are definitely still WAFs out there. I think it's starting to consolidate into just a couple mainstream ones where they just don't use a WAF at all, and they just do sanitization on their inputs and call it a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the better way. I feel like a WAF is a little bit of a safety net. But yeah, it definitely takes performance off of your application. So, if you're talking about some of these bigger targets that need performance as a part of their business use case, it's not super feasible to do that.
100%.
All right, what else we got in here?
You want to talk about Rojans?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Rojan, a.k.a. Uranium-238, he's a pretty old-school hacker. I actually work with him. And he started a company called Ophion. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but Ophion Security. He's been doing a lot of really awesome security research and work through that company, including, I think, there's a B-Sides talk coming up pretty soon that he's going to be given about, I think, about GitHub stuff. But he did a blog post recently about finding code space secrets on GitHub through, I believe, through the import feature, which I don't know if we talked about this last week, but I know there was another bug on GitLab.
I think
that was an XSS popped through a repo import. And,
actually, I think this one is a security advisory is kind of how he pops it.
Oh,
is there? Yeah, and then I think you might be confusing it with one of the other ones. Hopefully, we don't have to bleep out any of that. Hopefully, he's fine with us talking about other work he's done. But this one's a temporary fork, and I'm actually a little bit salty at him because like I looked at this target at a live hacking event like earlier last year, and I missed this. And not only did he find this, but he also escalated it by hitting a actual GitHub repo and an organization repo, which is
that's what I was thinking of.
That's what it was. Yeah. And that's just so big brain. Like he takes this and then applies it straight to GitHub and ends up being able to pull a token for the user gh-containers-bots, which has a bunch of like read-write access to internal repositories and stuff like that. So
super cool.
That's pretty sick. And I will say, for any of you that are interested in GitHub as a target, Code Spaces is a super fascinating target. I didn't love hacking on GitHub before this past live hacking event that we did with them, but they sort of nudged us a little bit towards Code Spaces during that event, and I was so glad they did because it's such a cool feature, and there's a lot of scope in there without going too much into detail about the vulns. There's a lot of scope in there where you can, do funky stuff, especially, and this is another thing I wanted to shout out the podcast about GitHub. If anyone's just hacking any GitHub related products, there's one concept that results in so many vulns that GitHub cannot do. They cannot get rid of it for legacy reasons. If you fork a repo and you commit to the forked copy of the repo, then that commit hash can be accessed on the original repo's tree. And that just results in so many vulnerabilities because, anytime they're trying to do repository level access controls, you can fork, and then your malicious, fork, your malicious commit that you've pushed to your fork, that can be accessed via a commit hash in the original repository. So I know I've talked to their security team a little bit. They're doing their best to kind of keep those vulns to a minimum, but it's definitely a cool trick that you need if you're going to go hack GitHub products.
That's a super interesting attack scenario. So basically, if you say you find a bug that's referencing an arbitrary commit hash, you can fork it, make some changes, provide your own commit hash that's from your fork, and it would work.
Well, it's not exactly like that. So what it is it's when, for example, you need to have specific content in a repo, right? So let's say like you own a repo, Joel, right? And I don't have write access to that repo. I've only got read access, right? But I do have the ability to fork. So I fork your repo, right? And I commit into my own repo. Then I get the commit hash from that, and I can craft a URL that starts with /Joel Margolis /vulnerable repo /my commit hash, and it will show my commits content in your repo because my repo is a fork of yours. So it's a real weird little trick that you can do that's just a part of that sort of deeper Git stuff that I don't understand. But Tom mentioned that to me once before, and then I want to say the other guy's name was not an aardvark. I'll have to go see if I can look it up, but he's kind of a prolific GitHub hacker. So talk to him about that as well.
Yeah, GitHub has a huge attack surface. I remember I hacked on them a couple years ago, and I found a pretty cool, interesting bug that was within one of their pre-release features. So a lot of times they gate their pre-release features with these specific headers that you have to send. Yeah. And otherwise, like if you hit the endpoint, it doesn't work at all. And I thought that was a great attack surface because it would be stuff that most people probably haven't tested or looked at. And sure enough, I was able to find a really cool bug in there. I don't actually know if it's resolved yet, but I'll have to look it up and see. Maybe we can talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely let me know about that. That sounds like a good one for the reports section. And I'm excited for the reports section today. We're going to have two of the guys that I mentee come on and kind of talk about their reports. That are my mentees that I mentor, come on and talk about some cool reports that they found. So should be cool to see what kind of stuff they come up with.
Yeah, I saw that in the doc, so I'm pretty pumped to hear about what they found and hear about the whole experience.
They're good bugs. One of the guys right now is working on a bug that's like just phenomenal, and I think we've got it to the point where it's like for sure it's just going to take a crap ton of programming, but the exploit is going to be like probably 300 400 lines of code long. So it's going to be a big one for sure.
That's awesome. Cool. On to the next.
Let's see. Yeah, we got Rezo's tweet and we got the live hacking standards. Which one do you want to go?
Let's do the live hacking event standards.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I just popped this on here because one of the things that the community has been talking about for a little while is HackerOne's impact requirements for the live hacking event standards. They were saying that you need to have, I want to say it was like a 23 or 22 impact or above to get invited to the live hacking events. And that was getting a lot of backlash because it's like, okay, well, do you literally just not want us to report lows and mediums in order to, get invited to the live hacking events? And I don't think that's what HackerOne wants, and, talk to them about that. But to be perfectly honest, man, I'm a little bit on the fence about their fix to this. So go click on the link that I put in the doc. And then if you scroll down, it's the one that says HackerOne platform performers in the last 180 days, right? And it still says researchers with more than 75% of submitted reports being high or critical. So I guess that could be, that wouldn't be 22 impact. Like if you submitted a bunch of, 75% of your bugs are highs, then you're at 25. And then, you've got maybe like a bunch of lows, and that would pull you down into like the 20 range. And then, but still 75% of your bugs being higher critical seems a little bit. 75% of my bugs aren't higher critical.
Yeah, I don't think mine are either.
Yeah.
Look, I definitely sympathize with HackerOne on this. I think
yeah,
they've been put in a tricky situation because in the early days of live hacking events, it was very much so an organic sort of natural process where they basically just wanted to invite top hackers, whatever that sort of means. It's basically just people who perform well at events, who are consistent about finding really good bugs, who can provide high impact and high value to the customers. That doesn't mean that you find 100% criticals, 100% highs all the time. It just means that that's sort of your skill set. And that's not exactly an easy skill set to pinpoint. The problem is that over time, over the years, the more events that they did, the more publicity that they got, the more that they advertised and talked about the events, the more people that wanted to come to the events, right? And so, unfortunately, they got into this situation where they have to explicitly define how people get invited, right? Because now, if somebody doesn't get an invite, they go, well, why didn't I get an invite? Well,
yeah,
they need some sort of hard reason to explain why you did or didn't get an invite, and that's very difficult to do. And I think they tried to structure a lot of these rules around sort of like to get a mimic of what they've been inviting already, but if you write stuff like this, you're going to back yourself into a corner where now you have to invite these people or you can't invite these people. And I've seen personally, as well as with friends of mine who are really, really good hackers who have been to tons of live hacking events who just don't get an invite because they don't meet the criteria anymore. And it's kind of unfortunate. It's a tricky situation for HackerOne because I think it's good to standardize it, but it's also good to sort of keep that natural aspect to the hacking events. So they have a little bit of a they're in a bit of a corner.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's difficult, I think too. But I think what they need to kind of sit down and decide is, what does the ideal hacker look like, for this specific category, right? Because I think that's what they're trying to say. Like, what does the ideal hacker look like on our platform? And for me, I don't think that's a hacker with 75% of their bugs being higher critical. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think you can do that without not reporting some lows and mediums. And to be honest, along the way, we're all looking for highs and criticals. That's the goal for sure. But along the way, you hit some lows and you hit some mediums, and they're not always going to be chainable. Sometimes they are, and that's great. But sometimes you've just got a bug that's just, this is never going to be chained, but it needs to be fixed. Yep. And there's some risk associated with it. So I don't know, man. I would still I feel like maybe this criterion is a little bit disconnected from what the actual hacking process looks like and what it looks like to build mastery over a specific target and become familiar with an application I almost just said it at an intimate level, like me and this application are like getting down and dirty.
It's 9 p.m.
But yeah, no, I think getting intimate with the application, understanding the ins and outs of it. Some lows and mediums are gonna pop up for sure. So, it's an improvement for sure, but in my opinion, it's not quite there still. But all the other categories look really good. I know that there's going to be some just sort of new to live hacking events section where they talk about criticality, consistency, and community. Those are the 3 C's that determine the MVH for the live hacking events. And so, people that have demonstrated that within the community will earn themselves up to 5 researchers an invite to the event. And then also, I also liked to see up to 10 researchers from geolocation-based selection. So wherever the live hacking event is, if it's local to you, you'll have a chance of getting an invite from that. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to incorporate the local hackers and stuff. A lot of these communities and locations have really awesome local hacker communities and local hacker groups and just local hackers in general that are undiscovered or underappreciated talent, and this is a great opportunity to sort of shine some light on that. But again, it opens the opportunity for a new person to get invited and then be immediately excluded from the next one because they don't meet the criteria, right? So
yeah,
I think that there is some room for refinement, but overall it's great to see them being so public about this and making adjustments to the rules. I know that they've had these rules for quite a number of years, but I think this is maybe the first blog post I've seen about it. I think it's mostly just been in PDF form. But yeah, I think something that you mentioned, and we'll probably talk more about this, is sort of you're not always going to submit highs and crits. And our later discussion is going to be about full-time bug bounty hacking, and I'm sure that somebody who hacks full-time doesn't only submit highs and crits, right? So,
heck yeah, man. Let's hop onto that after we talk about Rezo real quick, because I wanted to. He put out this tweet, and I really like Rezo's tweets a lot of the time, and I think he adds a lot of value. But there's one that I just kind of had to throw a hot take out on. Number 2. So I'll link it in the description, but he says, bug bounty is a lot of luck, but you control how many times you roll the dice. Here's 5 ways to maximize your luck of finding a bug. And he talks about number 1, fuzzing all the things. That's great. I agree with that. Number 2, don't rabbit hole. So I'm just going to read this out word for word because it's pretty short. Don't spend more than a few minutes on any one thing until you finish the app. Archangel Douglas does this extremely well. The first time I saw him hacking, I was shocked at how fast he was testing the app. Now, yeah, I don't know, man. What do you think? I won't shoot my opinion out there first. I want to get yours and hear what you think.
Well,
first.
It's interesting because this was also something that I put on my question sheet to ask you about full-time hacking. But
oh, really? Cool.
I feel it's really hard to define this in like a hard set rule, because there are lots of times where we'll be hacking on a target and you'll feel like this is not something that's worth pursuing, but I should keep hacking on it and keep poking at it because I think that there might be something further here, versus I need to optimize the amount of time that I'm hacking on this. So let me just move on and look at all the other features because I'm hacking on a big application, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is a balance. I will say I'm not going to come in too hot here, but I will say that I firmly disagree with this. I think one of the things that changed about me, about the way I hacked starting, I guess maybe 2021, was I hacked more. In the past, I focused more on like really trying to find everything and like getting all this coverage and like really, you know, to be perfectly honest, it was before I had won an MVH and I was shooting for the MVH. You know, I wanted to kill everything, find all the bugs, you know, and dominate the event, right? But when I stopped having that mentality, I actually won my MVHs. And the reason for that was because I was finding bugs that were more interesting, that were deeper in the application, and that were more impactful. And I've mentioned this in the past. This is one of my tips for live hacking events is we have 2 weeks, you know, 3 weeks maybe to attack these giant companies with these big scopes. You're not going to be able to cover everything, so don't even try. If you're on a team, maybe you could, you know, split stuff up and somebody could, you know, go wide and, you know, an inch deep. But at the end of the day, to find the best bugs, you're going to need to go deep. And so I say rabbit hole as much as you can. Try to find those weird parts of the application that you can become a super expert on, and make sure that those parts of the applications are very close to what the business values. Because then once you become more intimately familiar, here I am again. Me and this application are getting it on, man. You know, once you become more intimately acquainted with the application, you'll be able to see. You know, you'll find more impactful bugs that are, and they'll also be a lot of, in my experience, there'll also be a lot of them. And so it's not necessarily that you're gonna be, you know, that person that submits one super crit and is like super proud of it, and that person's great, and you know that's definitely a valid strategy. But I think you know, rabbit holing, finding something very close to the business data or the business value, and then becoming a super expert on that is a better way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you see this success story over and over again where, like, you'll go to a hack a program, for example. You look at the leaderboard, and it's like the rep is like 150, 180, 200, 250, 2,500. And
yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
Wait, like, what happened between number 2 and number 1, right? And it's that number 1 has been hacking on this and going deep, right? Like, they've been going in. They've been taking lots of notes. They've been finding all the little nuances. They've been exploring the edge cases and the fringes of the application that nobody else has been looking at, and that's why they're 2,000 rep higher.
Yeah, for sure. And that, you know, that person definitely isn't the person that just went, you know, an inch deep and a mile wide on the application. And to be fair, in the context of live hacking events, I think you also have to do the trade-off of like, okay, well, I'm only going to be looking at this target for 3 weeks. Can I really become an expert on this in 3 weeks? And, you know, that's going to be a know yourself sort of situation there. But for me, I've just been starting to hit those deadlines, man, where like, you know, right as the event is getting close, I'm like, you know, popping out some really good bugs the day before the event or even the day of the event, because my knowledge of the application is starting to solidify and I'm really starting to get it. It's starting to click. So, yeah. Yeah.
And I think live hacking events are kind of a little bit of an edge case because you have such that finite timeline. And not only that, you're racing against other like top elite hackers, right? So everybody has the same scope. Some people might be more familiar than others, but usually you kind of hope that it's a scope that nobody has seen yet and you're all on sort of a level playing field, which also means that everybody's like racing to be the best, starting from the same place, right? It's like you're on a track, right? Everybody's at the starting line. Who's going to make it to the end the first? Who's going to have the best, you know, whatever. And you have to really balance that, like, how much time am I going to spend on this versus moving on? How much time has somebody else spent on this? Somebody already found this bug. Is there a bug here that I haven't found yet that I'm going to spend all day finding that maybe somebody else has found? So I think there's a lot more involved in that decision.
Complex, man.
Yeah. Versus if you're just picking any target, you know, any public program, any private program, you have generally a pretty good idea that there's not going to be like that same caliber of people focusing on it to the same level for the same period of time. And if you take your time and you develop that familiarity, that intimacy, as you call it, with the program, then you'll be able to get a little bit further than everybody else because they're focusing on other programs.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, and I just want to clarify, I really appreciate Rezo's tweets and, sharing knowledge and stuff like that. And one way or the other, we're generating content, we're generating controversy, so we're figuring out how to do this thing better together. And just to once over the other 5 things that he pointed out here. So he says, fuzz all the things, fuzz vhost, fuzz headers, fuzz parameters, fuzz everything. And I definitely think that is one way of going about it. I've seen a lot of people successful with that. I don't know that I have, really mastered that. I think that I've got a lot of improvement to do in that area. And I think Rezo probably does that a decent bit better than me. Number 3, so we're skipping number 2 because not going to shout that one out.
We already went over it.
Yep. Number 3, dedicate time each day. I totally agree with this. Sometimes it's just, I mean, I think this is the most correlatory thing to his original tweet at the beginning that says, you control how many times you roll the dice. Like if you're getting in there and you're putting in the hours, you are 100% going to find a bug. It's just going to take a lot of time.
Yep.
And it's not, and I think a lot of people, this is one thing I've been kind of talking about with my mentees lately too. I think a lot of people sort of fade out before they should on these sort of things.
Yeah.
So share your leads, hit up your local Joel and say, Joel, please help me with this lead. And then invest time into learning new attacks. I don't know. What do you think about that last one, Joel? I mean, I think that's definitely true. And I've seen Def Program sort of kill it with the request smuggling stuff. But yeah, there are a lot of bugs out there that are, older that are still all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're listening to this podcast, you're already sort of, you're there a little bit, right? Like you're investing in new attacks, you're learning, you're exploring, you're trying to consume sort of what's going on and stay up to date. I think you see this so often where any industry, it doesn't have to be tech, it doesn't have to be bug bounty. Anybody who falls behind and just stays stagnant and doesn't keep learning and stay on the front edge, you're going to be that professor who's talking about back in 1990,
teaching it instead of doing it.
I invented TCP. It's like, cool, man. But what about everything else?
I invented TCP. Dang, dude, that I feel like that's one of my professors at college, man. There's just
everybody's had at least one of those professors that's back when I was in school, we were inventing the internet. It's like, oh wow,
DOS
had
just
cool.
come out and I was
and then they give you a homework assignment that's some old, antiquated, not relevant.
Write this in Cobalt. No. The one thing that he does say in here is cache deception. Have you played around with cache deception much? I have found a lot of cache deception vulns, and I always look for it. I think it's because of Andre's influence, but I found out recently that not a lot of people are looking for that. Is that?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, caching is a huge problem. It leaves so much room for problems just in every application. I think there was a Twitter thread just today about Loom. Loom is some company, I don't know exactly what they do, but they mentioned that they were experiencing a problem where some users were being logged into other users' accounts, and you would just open Loom and you would be in someone else's account. And
dude,
I can almost guarantee this is a caching problem because
I use Loom. I actually tried to log into my account yesterday and it was broken, so I'm hoping nobody's logged into my account right now. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm sure their security incident response team is going crazy right now trying to figure out who accessed what and all that kind of stuff. But caching is one of those things that makes an application work way better and way faster and be just better as a whole, but it also leaves a lot of risk for you to mess something up. And I think it's one of those things that flies so underneath the radar that you might just skip over the header, right? You see a cache control header or something and you're like, God, that's just, delete that. That's part of the normal response, whatever, move on. And actually learning how cache control works and how cache deception works and request smuggling and the actual details and fine details behind it. It's one of those investing time into learning new attacks. At some point, it's probably a good idea to just sit down and focus, spend some focus time, spend a day, spend a couple hours and just play around with it in a controlled environment so you get get a real good understanding for how something's working, and then you can take it out into the real world.
Yeah, for sure. I just noted it down. Maybe we'll do an episode on web cache deception and web cache poisoning. Those are both really interesting vulnerability types, and I think are sort of under researched. So we'll put that on the queue.
Cool. All right, you want to talk about full-time bug bounty hacking?
Let's do it, man. You got some questions here for me.
Boy, do
hit me.
Okay, cool. Well, let's just start with like, maybe you can tell me a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like, because at least for me, I'll give some context. Like, I'm a security engineer, so I work 9 to 5 equivalent, 8 hours a day. I start work, I finish work, and then I'm done with work. So I'd be curious to hear sort of like, what does your day-to-day look like? Do you work 8 hours a day? Do you work 2 hours a day? Do you work weekends? I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So good question. Yeah, I'd say it varies a lot. During the live hacking events, which happen every couple months, I'm hitting it pretty hard. I'd say probably my minimum is 8. Mostly looking more like a 10 or a 12-hour day during those events, just kind of grinding it out. And the bounties are higher, the incentives are there, the bonuses are good, so it's a good time to really like hit it hard. Outside of that, normally after the live hacking events, I take some time off. So normally that's a week or 2. I'd say maybe total of like, I probably work maybe 10 months a year, maybe a little bit less. And obviously that's not paid time off, because I'm, bugs equal money for me. And so I can pay myself from my LLC, and then, I can sort of have paid time off, but I'm not actually making any money during that time, which is a little bit tricky. So yeah, that's, and then I'd say like the average day to day, I probably work, maybe like 6 to 8, when I'm not in the, live hacking events. So 6 to 8 hours, not 6 o'clock to 8 p.m.
Yeah, just a casual, 14 hours.
Yeah, 14-hour day, no biggie.
Yeah, as you do. So you mentioned that, like, especially during live hacking events, you're really on the grind. You're really like pushing into it. Do you take breaks? Do you control your time in like a meaningful, purposeful way at all, or do you sort of just flow with energy level? Or
yeah, I kind of flow with the energy levels, man. I'm not a big break taker. It interrupts my focus. I even get irritated when I have to get up and go to the bathroom. I'm like, all right, let me just like finish this thing before I go. So no, I it's pretty much like it's almost always a full 10-hour like streak. And Mariah is amazing. We've kind of built out, for those of you that don't know, Mariah is my wife, and during the live hacking events, we've kind of hit a system where she understands that I'm going to be very busy, and she also understands that during the day, even though I'm not going to grab lunch with her like I normally do or something like that during a regular work day, that when I'm not working, I will be entirely present with her and with the other activities around. But during the day, I'm totally focused. So she brings me food. I don't even realize I'm eating it half the time. She just plops it down and then I eat it and I just move along. Very focused. Don't take a lot of breaks. But I know other people do. I want to say today's new Eric, does a break every like 30 minutes or something like that. He'll get up and walk around. So there's definitely different strategies to it.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's something that I definitely, especially during the workday, I tend to just sit down and I work like just until I have no energy left. So that's something I can definitely relate with. You mentioned that like, bugs equals income, right? And I think that's probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of people who consider doing bug bounty full time, is that you don't have that sort of stability. There's no guaranteed income. It's all basically what you put in is what you get out. And even that is sometimes you can put in so much and just get nothing out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how do you manage your time and trying to optimize sort of your income? So like, how do you pick what to hack on? When do you choose to call it and move on and go to the next target? Or sort of what we talked about, like when do you decide that something is not worth going any deeper into and move on to the next part of the application?
Yeah, it's tricky, man, for sure. I think I think, what I'm focusing on is largely determined by the live hacking event. So if I'm in a live hacking event, then I'm, focusing on the target, obviously. And when I'm not in a live hacking event, I have a couple. Well, for one, I prioritize the HackerOne challenges that come up because those are fresh targets. Mm-hmm. The bounties are normally like pretty decent. And so I'll go after those. I hit one of those recently, but when there's no HackerOne challenges and there's no live hacking event, then I'm going after my, old reliable program. I've kind of landed on that being Instacart. Finally get to shout them out on here.
Nice.
Great bounties, awesome team, very responsive. Just really enjoyed working with them. So I hit them pretty hard. When do I call it? When do I move on? No, most of the time my attention is forcibly diverted for a live hacking event. So if I'm in the middle of hacking on Instacart and I'm in deep and I'm in a certain section of the application, even if an H1 challenge comes up, I won't necessarily jump on it. I'll stick with it and then I'll continue hacking that target until the live hacking event comes up. The HackerOne World Cup is coming up, which I think I will prioritize over my other stuff, which it did take some thought because there are going to be, I think the dupe situation is a little bit challenging there because they're not doing a dupe period. So it's just going to be a lot of people hacking on a target, but I've decided I'm going to go, for a little bit more obscure vulnerabilities, some specialties of mine that I feel like most other people won't be able to find. And hopefully that will pay off pretty well. Regarding your note on, the stability piece, I don't think that this is one of the things that I'm most grateful for in the world. I don't know that I would have ever pulled the trigger on going full-time bug bounty if Mariah hadn't pretty much insisted that I do it. Because I don't know, I really do. I'm someone that really naturally values that stability. And so, you definitely want to have some runway. You definitely want to have, I would say, at least 6 months to a year of runway in your bank before you kick off. Somebody I know who's about to go full-time bug bounty is aiming for 2 years runway, which I think is a little excessive. But I told them that, and they're like, hey, it is what it is. Yeah, for sure. And I totally get that. But yeah, I don't know that I would have ever done it. But Mariah said, dude, you're making more money hacking part-time than you are at your main job full-time. So this doesn't make any sense. And then, so at that point, we kind of pulled the trigger. And at that time, when I switched to full-time bug bounty, I was moving to Japan. So the healthcare problem was sort of solved by being a student at a language school in Japan and getting healthcare through the government there. It's kind of worked like that ever since.
So I'm curious why, maybe you could give me some background about what made you choose to do the switch instead of, if you're already making more than you're making at your full-time job, why not keep the full-time job as just passive, stable income and then make the majority of your income on the side doing, basically a hobby?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think I've actually advised a couple of my friends that are like, hey, should I go full-time bug bounty to keep their full-time jobs, especially if it's cush. There are some security gigs that are just chill AF out there. They really are. And they do not pay a nominal amount of money. Yeah. I was not making super much. I was making 70 base when I came out of college. And so, there are some people over on the West Coast, in the in the 200 range. And I'm like, I wouldn't leave that job if I were you, Yeah. And so, I think it's relative. And for me, when I was hacking part-time, it was taking all of my free time, and it was, putting it into this money-making hobby, which was great. And I enjoyed the hobby. But also I wanted to be able to do other things with my free time as well. And, do more things with my time than just security. So shifting bug bounty to my main income allowed me to still kill it in bug bounty, have fun, and, participate in that community while also being able to, I just went and played pickleball for a couple hours right before we started this podcast, and I do a podcast and spend time with my wife and friends. So that's kind of the main goal, to get time back.
Yeah. So about, speaking about the time stuff, I know we talked a little bit about how much you work each day and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Outside of live hacking events, do you hack on weekends? Is it weekdays only?
It depends. So, because I'm not limited to a traditional schedule, sometimes my weekend will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And, we'll go do a trip or something like that when no one else is around. And, while the lines are short or the crowds aren't there, which is great. And then in those scenarios, I will work on weekends sometimes, but I definitely try to avoid working on Sunday. That's sort of a Christian principle, and I think it's really wise, whether you're a Christian or not, is just having one day set aside for rest that's just like holy to you, that's just like you don't infringe upon that, because at least for me, I'm definitely stray more on the side of like, I want to work more. I want to work. I want to push it. Right. And so having one day that's just kind of like, no, this day is a day where we sit on our couch and read a book, or we sit in the hot tub and, chill versus hacking. I think that's been a big value for me.
Got it. So if you're taking time off, it's a little bit of a complicated relationship because you are both the employee and the employer, right?
Yeah.
Everything is reliant on you. And I had a lot of this struggle when I was in college, but essentially doing bug bounty full time, where I got to a point where I felt like I was being like a very aggressive boss towards myself, essentially, where I was like, I have to be working. I have to be, right? And how do you balance that where you get to take time off, but you don't want to feel bad about taking time off?
Well, I've got this great boss, Mariah, who who's very much like, dude, if I'm a workaholic, she is like just so able to, if I'm being a workaholic, she is so able to just shut that down and like slap me out of it and just be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, no, we're about to go take a trip and like, it's going to be a blast. This is, this is why we made this decision. And so, I definitely struggle with that. I definitely struggle with being like, I gotta get back to work. I gotta work. But then she just reminds me, like, no, you don't. And you can come and chill and do this. And, I've been doing it for it's 3 years this month that I've been full-time bug bounty. I'm just kind of now getting the swing of like being able to pretty guilt-free be like, yeah, okay, you know what, I'm off, and that's how it is. And I'll pick up the slack a different day, or I'll ride on the slack of provided by, the last live hacking event or whatever.
Got it. Do you ever feel like you get burned out or overworked doing it full-time?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a danger. I kind of talked a little bit about this in a panel with HackerOne a while back, but for me, burnout and overwork comes from when it mostly comes from when I try to put my identity in my work, and then I don't fulfill it. So if I am aiming for number one for MVH at a live hacking event, and then I get like 12th or like 20th or something, like in those scenarios, that's when I feel like, you know what, I'm burnt out on this. Like I tried my best and I can't, do anything. And so for me, having shifted and I did that for a long time. And there was a period when I strongly considered quitting bug bounty right after I had first started going full time. But then I realized, hey, my self-worth is found in other things besides my work performance. For me, it's found in the love of Jesus. For others that have done it successfully, it's found in relationships. It's found in, living their best life that they can, and to each their own. I think if you've got your identity, you're not putting your identity in your work, and you're setting reasonable boundaries. Obviously, you can't be doing 3 months of 12, 14-hour days without feeling some stuff. But I do it for, 3 weeks to a month when prepping for live hacking events, and it's still pretty manageable as long as I keep my communication up with my spouse, and I don't do 16-hour days, and I still got a couple hours on either side to chill and communicate and touch grass,
Yeah. So it sounds like you do set goals to some extent then, but it's sort of like manageable ones, right? You don't want to be like, I want to be number one, because then if you don't hit number one, then it feels bad, right?
Yeah, goal management I think is pretty fuzzy for me. I definitely do sit down and say, all right, this is where I'd like my income goals to be for a year and for a month and stuff like that. And for a live hacking event, I don't set I set financial goals for life hacking, which is really fun. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, Joel, but actually Mariah started helping me figure out this system. She said, hey, okay, we're going to set a goal. Let's say, 20 grand or whatever. And for every, tick above that goal, you get a prize.
Oh, okay.
And so, if I do, instead of 20 grand, I do 30 grand, then, I'll get, like, I don't know, what's a good example? One of my prizes, this was the highest prize, was a hot tub, which I talk about all the time because I use it, all the time. And all of my friends just keep their bathing suits in their car now because whenever they come over, we're hopping into the hot tub. They know it. And that was, the highest tier, and that's been great. And we've done some work on our house, patio and stuff like that. And so, yeah, having those sort of tiered goals from a financial perspective is very motivating. And yeah, besides that, I don't really set first place, second place, third place, MVH, goals anymore because, I think those are largely, variable based off of who else is around, who's hacking, how much time they're putting in and that sort of thing as well.
Got it. So let's see. Yeah, let's talk about taxes first, and then we'll get on more of a technical side. So, sort of on the business side, taxes, healthcare, all that kind of stuff. How do you manage? Because I think most people know bug bounty income is not taxed from HackerOne or Bugcrowd or whoever's paying it. It's just they just send you a lump sum of money, and it's kind of up to you to figure it out. So, do you have an automated system or any system in general that you use to manage your taxes and all that kind of financial side of, I guess, the business?
Yeah. So go ahead and throw out the preface out there. Not tax advice, not legal advice, not health insurance advice. Boom. Disclaimed.
Safe.
Safe. Very professional. For taxes, I have an LLC, which is structured as an S Corp. And I kind of do it that way. And you can talk to your accountants about the way that that you can do that in America. It's a pretty common tax optimization setup. I pay myself a salary through the company, and I also issue dividends to myself, or maybe the technical term isn't dividends, but I also pull money out as the owner of the company. And then I'm also able to employ my wife as well. So that's a great way to get value from the taxes perspective. And I think, to be perfectly honest, just sitting down and paying the big bill that it takes to get a good accountant to sit down with you is very, very worth it for anyone who's looking to go into bug bounty. I've been really impressed with my accountant's work, so 100%. definitely do that.
Yeah, I have an accountant too. He's awesome. I'm not gonna say his name because I want him all to myself, but find yourself a good accountant. Ask some friends for recommendations or something. Mm-hmm. But an accountant is definitely more. It's worth more than whatever you're going to pay for it. The advice is just priceless.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
And then from the healthcare perspective, I'll just hop on that really quick. We're at like 57 minutes right now, so we gotta wrap. I won't talk about this for too long, but my blog post, I did do a blog post on hacker healthcare, and it's a pretty good post, sort of outlining my setup for healthcare. It talks about how I have sort of two ways that I've solved this problem in the U.S. One is catastrophic coverage. So if I were to get cancer or get hit by a car and break 30 bones, how is that getting paid for? And for me, that's covered by a health share plan, which you can read about on the blog. Very affordable. I think it's $182 a month for me and Mariah or something like that. And then the other side of it is the sort of day-to-day care, which is hey, I'm sick, I need a prescription. Hey, I've got a really bad case of poison ivy from digging around in the weeds in my backyard. Help. Maybe that one was a little too too clear, too specific.
Call out some memories.
Triggered. And then for that I have a DPC subscription, which is a direct primary care subscription, which is essentially a contract I've set up with a doctor that I can just text him and call him and video chat and pretty much just walk into the office whenever I feel like it, and he's there available to be seen and to answer any questions. And man, that is some serious value, Yeah,
I think everybody I know who's self-employed is paying 5 times that at least.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I mean, it's $182 for me and Mariah for the catastrophic care, and then the subscription every month is like $100 per person for the doctor. So it's definitely worth it. We get out, quite cheap with that, and we get really high quality of care. So I was really grateful to have found a good solution, because healthcare is so stressful in the United States,
especially
and
in the US.
That seems a good way. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, last question. Not on the business side. How
Yeah.
do you like organize yourself? You're doing all this hacking. You're hacking like pretty much every day for many hours a day. How do you map out an application? How do you take notes? How do you keep track of different programs? How do you structure it?
Well, this really cool friend of mine named Joel introduced me to VS Code.
And you gotta introduce me to that guy.
Yeah, what I do is I pop open a VS Code instance, and then I spam random keys and save a file, and then I just put random notes in there on like IDs and like weird pieces of JavaScript that I like or something like that. Unfortunately, I'm not a terribly organized hacker. I do name my burp tabs. I'm not a lunatic, right? I do name my burp tabs, but I'm also not taking very structured notes, unfortunately, on the targets. At this point in my progression as a hacker, this is going to sound really, weird, but I just kind of go with the flow of the application, like I'm really just kind of trying to live in the application and, kind of figure out how it feels. And so taking structured notes beyond, something that I want to be able to go back and grab really quick and paste in, is not something that I do super well. I know a lot of people do, but I don't. And one tip just on my methodology that was a total game changer for me lately was a friend of mine, non-technical friend. She showed me lately that Windows has a built-in clipboard history.
Oh yeah, I pulled.
Did
this
you
up
know
by,
that?
I have pulled this up by accident like so many times. It's like Windows.
Yeah.
Windows.
Is it Windows V?
Windows C or Windows? Yeah, it's Windows V. Windows C is Cortana.
Yeah, Windows V. Man, I love this. And then you can just scroll through and like see a history. So this is my note taking now. Like my Windows V is my note taking. All of the IDs are in there, like all the sketchy pieces of JavaScript, all the endpoints. It's all in there. And I don't know, man. Like I told you, I was kind of unsure about switching to WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, but I do like that one piece. And if I ever go back to Linux, I'm definitely going to find some sort of similar solution for Linux.
Yeah. Okay. Dude, that's awesome. I think we're at time.
All right. Yeah, that's a wrap for the main section on Full-Time Bug Bounty. I guess, tell you what, I'll go ahead and cut the recording here, and then I'll go ahead and pull Kodai and Soma on to talk about their bugs, and we'll just splice together. That sound good?
Yeah. I'm super pumped. For those who don't know, I don't know if we talked about this, but two people that you've mentored, you're going to be bringing on, and they're going to be talking about some bugs that they found, which is super dope. Should be really fun. Any closing thoughts, or is that a wrap? This has made me think really hard about bug bounty full time and all that kind of stuff. In my own personal perspective on joy in the dark side, time management and energy management and all that kind of stuff. I think the closing advice I'll give is I think one of the things I've noticed throughout life is that it's all about energy management, and finding the best way to manage your energy is like the key to everything else. So just finding like what motivates you, how to set those goals and keep it healthy, but also being able to push yourself. I think you do a really awesome job at all of that, and I definitely strive to be closer to that. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, those are some deep thoughts to leave people off with, but definitely something to be considered. And energy is definitely a cool thing to optimize for, because I think there's so many people that optimize for money, a lot of people that optimize for time. But yeah, optimizing for energy is definitely something to consider. So with that, we'll cut it here, and we'll switch over to some bug reports from Kodai and Soma. Awesome. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week. See ya. Sweet. We're rolling. Sup, guys? Welcome to the show.
Hey. Thank you.
We've got my two mentees, Kodai and Soma here. I have the mic shifted further away from my super loud voice, closer to them to pick theirs up. Pretty much just going to have you guys talk today about the 2 bugs that we selected that you found kind of when we were working together. They're pretty great bugs. I'm really proud of them. I met these 2. So actually, let me give a disclaimer before we get into this episode. I do not take mentorship, mentee applications. The last time I mentioned it on air, 15 people messaged me and were like, "Hey, anytime, I only do this for like friends, great guys like these guys that I know in real life." So I will keep you up to date about whether that ever changes. But for right now, no mentorship program. So, all right, guys, you ready to roll? Which one of you guys wants to go first?
I can go first.
All right, Kodai, hit us.
Hello everyone. My name is Kodai. I also go by the name of Kodai Chodai, which is my silly hacker handle.
Nice.
Yeah. So Kodai is my name, and Chodai means like in Japanese, like give me something. Yeah, sort of vibe. I think you were the one who actually came up with that.
we forced him. He couldn't come up with a name for his HackerOne handle. So when we were setting it up, we were like, all right, it's going to be Kodai Chodai, which is a saying that Mariah came up with one night when we were doing board game night or something like that.
Yeah.
So he's stuck with it forever now because he's already found some bugs, so he's not going to ditch that rep.
I kind of regretted it.
Yeah.
Well, so I graduated from college
Yeah.
in March last year, and I'm currently training to be a full-time big bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm at this point where I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to introduce myself as a hacker, honestly.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're about to talk about a bug on a podcast. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's about it, I guess.
Yeah. Are you? I mean, do you think you want to focus primarily on bug bounty from here on out, or are you entertaining employment options, or what?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I'm still kind of sitting on the fence, trying to decide which direction I should go to, and yeah, I don't know, man, but I think at the end of the day, what I really want to do is bug hunting, full time.
Yeah, it gives you that flexibility, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. All right, Soma, you want to give a little introduction as well?
Yeah, sure. I'm Soma. I'm doing hacking with my name of Matope.
Matope. Onomatope.
Onomatope, which is a nickname from Japanese.
Yeah.
Basically. And I was a student until February. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just finished my bachelor's degree in chemistry, and in computer science I've been working on my own mini projects, doing some programming and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's great. I remember, so Soma and I met through a mutual friend, and he was studying chemistry, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then we talked about it a little bit more, and he's like, yeah, but look at this cool line bot that I wrote and stuff like that. And he had done a bunch of really cool IT stuff on the side. So yeah, I was really impressed. And where are you working now that you've graduated?
Yeah, from this April, I'm gonna start working for a company called Rakuten, which is a pretty big company in Japan.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest. It's a competitor to Amazon in Japan. So really thrilled for you that you nailed that interview and got that one.
Thanks.
That's a really great job. So yeah, I hope you'll continue doing bug bounty in your free time on the side. And
I definitely will.
That sounds good. All right, so the bugs, right? Do you guys need your laptops, or are you just gonna kind of wing it? Good to just talk about it?
I think I'm good.
All right, so Kodai went first doing intros, so maybe Soma wants to go first doing the bug explanations.
Okay.
All right, hit us.
Yeah, so I was hacking a Japanese app of a very famous American company, and I was looking into strings.xml.
So this is an Android app?
Android app, yeah. And then I found this parameter called kagi, which is key in Japanese. And they used this parameter to decode other hard-coded, really important information. And I think other hackers couldn't find this because it's it's in Japanese, and I was able to find that because I'm a Japanese, and yeah, this is one thing I like about hacking. So you kind of like utilize many information.
Yeah.
For example, like HTTP and then web app. You use Linux server
and languages.
Yeah, and then new natural language too.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, that was such a fun bug. We couldn't believe when we saw the string was like Kagi. It was literally just key in Japanese, and then it just decrypted everything that they had secret in the app. So that was a really good find, Soma.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and you like you typically go. I guess you've got more experience with mobile apps than web application hacking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that should definitely be good for you, and I think. Yeah, we've got some targets we're working on right now that are really exciting. Not mobile actually. You're focusing on another. I guess we can't really say the company name because the bug isn't even submitted yet. But you've got another bug in the works. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, should be really fun. It's a CSS injection.
Yeah, CSS injection and credit card post message.
Yeah, credit card post message CSS injection. It's going to be a great bug, dude. I'm really excited.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice job, man. Kodai, you're up next. What you talking about?
Sure. So I'm going to talk about this numeric IDOR that me and Justin actually collaborated on. So one time we were hacking this food delivery service, and when you open up the page logged in, on the top left-hand corner, you see this little pin looking mark, and if you clicked on that, it shows a couple of interesting pieces of user information, and such as driver instructions, zip code, the whole address of the user and stuff. And so we thought, okay, this is really interesting, so we should basically we decided to poke around it a little bit, and we basically found out that the user, the server, on the server side, the server wasn't validating the user through any secure methodologies, but what the server was actually doing is that it was validating the user through this 10-digit value. So it was all numeric. And so, yeah, we basically...
And this was in the address change functionality, right? So you saw that delivery instruction, zip code, the address, and then there was a functionality to change that. And the request that it was sending to the server, it was only validating which users or which address should be changed via that numeric ID, right?
Yeah, numeric ID. Yeah, so it was the numeric ID was at least on the website called address ID. So we decided to change the address ID to see if the modified malicious user input that we created will be reflected on the victim's account. And we tried that on Burp, just modifying the request body of GraphQL. Post request.
Yeah, that's right.
But we actually didn't see any result on the request. On the HTTP response.
Right.
So, but we still try to go to the website and see the results.
This is really key, guys. This is a good piece here. So talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't really we didn't see anything. Any change on the HTTP response, but we did see the change, the malicious user input reflected on the victim's page. Yeah, that's how we
So what you were saying was that there was an IDOR, and with regarding to change the address for a specific user, you could specify a different address for a different user, and that occurred when you send the request. The response, what was it, an error? It was an error, right?
Yeah, it was 500 error.
Okay, so it was a 500 error, a server error, right? So it's not a 403, it's not an access denied, it's a 500 server error, but it still updated it.
Yeah, on the victim's page.
It's a good one, man. That's a good one. So definitely be on the lookout for that, guys. where you're testing an IDOR, and even if you get an access denied, or even if you get a 500 server error back, that doesn't mean that the attack didn't take effect. So always validate that your IDOR didn't actually take effect on the victim account, and also check and maybe just use inputs that are kind of crazy. So in this scenario, maybe I could have changed the address of somebody to say, yeah, this is crazy input, and then when you're going into that account, if you look at the address in the future, you can say, oh, wait a second, that actually did take effect. So those are some great tips. Good stuff, guys. Any takeaways from this you want to share with the crowd?
Yeah. So from my bug, I'd say I already mentioned a little bit, but you can use a lot of knowledge for hacking, and it's not just about vulnerabilities, but you can use your natural language knowledge and also cryptography and programming too, and I learned that from that bug that I found.
That's awesome. Yeah, so taking information from lots of different areas, and everyone's a unique hacker. Everyone has their own perspective from which they're hacking. So that can definitely give you a unique perspective and help you to find bugs that other people can't find. So that's a great takeaway. Kodai, what about you?
I'd just say numerical IDORs, they're really
super impactful.
Yeah, they're very impactful. So you should definitely go after that, and just like you said, sometimes you don't really see the results that you would like to see on the
HTTP response.
Yeah, HTTP response, but definitely maybe by trying to make it look a little more obvious, you can. Yeah, you should definitely try to see it on the
victim account.
The victim account. Yeah, you're targeting that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Sweet, guys. Thanks for coming on and sharing. I kind of forced him into this a little bit, but yeah, I think that's it for the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you again next week. All right, see you, everybody.